go. On the air. Personnel Committee meeting for April 7th. Councilmember Zine chairing. Mr. Koretz is going to be here momentarily. Mr. Parks, I understand, will not make it today. 4 items on the agenda. So it should be a rather brief meeting. Thank you, Mr. Perry, for making it simple today.
It's up to you.
We've had enough excitement in the city for the last couple of days. PPL. What item are you here on?
ADR.
ADR? Okay. We can give you one.
Number 2, actually.
ADR?
Alternative dispute.
Yeah, but that's the city's port. Oh, okay. I don't know, I was thinking the San Pedro port. Okay, let's go with number 1.
On item 1, you have a city administrative officer report relative to Measure B funded enhancements to the Los Angeles Fire Department Trauma Air Transport Services. There is related staffing that is on as part of the recommendations. The Public Safety Committee has considered the item and has recommended approval of the recommendations contained in the CO report.
All right, Chief. And Mark.
Are you ready?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm Mark Davis with the CAO's office. In November 2009, the Board of Fire Commissioners approved a fire department recommendation for the Measure B funded enhancement for the trauma air transport services for the Los Angeles County. This program provides the fire department with up to $1.3 million this fiscal year and 1.1 to 1.3 million for the next 2 fiscal years. The agreement is with the LA County Fire, the Sheriff's Department, and LA City Fire to provide air transportation to trauma care center patients through the underserved trauma areas. The 4 positions that are being requested for the program are one of the resolution authorities for an assistant fire chief and 3 resos for the helicopter pilot trainees. The measure covers the direct salary cost for all 4 of these, for all 4 positions, and the indirect costs will be covered by Fund 44R in the fire department, the Targeted Destination Services Fund. And there is no cost to the general fund.
Okay, so they want to add a fire assistant chief. Who has that position now?
No one has that position now. It'll be a new position.
Okay.
The 3 firefighter positions, the pilots, the funding is for 3 years for those. And the assistant chief, the funding goes on forever.
And aeromedical clinical care, who's that?
The critical care coordinator or the aeromedical?
Aeromedical.
It's $50,000 for us to hire someone to train our flight medics and people that work with our aircraft on flight physiology and safety, and 3 more disciplines that we don't currently have an instructor for. So it's up to $50,000 a year for us to contract that training out, which we've been doing for several years. It's reimbursement for that.
And then additional safety equipment. What kind of safety equipment?
Some safety equipment that they requested that we get, the Department of Health Services, from a CAM survey that was done in 2004. We've already bought that equipment to the tune of about $467,000. and it'd be reimbursement for that. And that's for year 08, 09.
Now, you're going to add 3 fire helicopter pilot trainee positions and provide continuing education to medical and maintenance personnel. So 3 more firefighters are going to become pilots?
That's correct. And we've had those people in position since June 1st of 2009. They gave us 3 years as of about April, I believe, 30th of 2009. So we got those people in place already. So this is a reimbursement for those 3 positions. And it's direct and indirect costs for all the 3 pilots.
How many pilots does the fire department currently have?
I couldn't answer that. This gives us 3 more trainees. We normally have 3 trainees per shift. Correction, 3 trainees at a time, 1 per shift. This gives us a total of 6 trainees.
But they're trained for so long, then they become pilots.
Takes 3 years, that's correct.
3 years to become a helicopter pilot?
Yes. Well, it takes 1 year for them to get trained in the small aircraft, and then about 3 years by the time they're able to do the large aircraft or the aeromedical aircraft.
The police department trains their folks a lot quicker. Are police officers sharper than firefighters now?
Some of them, sir.
Thank you very much. Too bad Tom LaBonge is not here for that.
There are
Have
16 helicopter pilot spots.
16?
16.
I know we got 5 choppers. Is it 5?
6.
6?
If you remember
Bell
back,
plus the big ones?
correct. If you remember back in 2005 when our Fire 5
Yeah.
had a forced landing, well, we weren't able to train for like 3 years. So this is how we're catching up for those 3 years.
Okay, because I was out with those folks recently, and I know the number are up for retirement.
Correct.
So these
Yes.
folks will then start taking those positions over.
Yes.
Okay, and you mentioned incidental cost. Is that the pension and other aspects that will be covered by the 44R?
Yes, yes,
So in other words, everything is covered
correct,
without any hit on the general fund?
correct.
And is the assistant fire chief going to get to fly, or is he going to be on the ground? Or he or she?
He or she would be on the ground.
Okay. So I've been to the Air Ops, nice facility, nice people, good cooks there.
That's correct.
It's a great opportunity. We're joined by the distinguished man of great quotes in council today, Mr. Koretz. What do you have to say about this?
Well, I just have one question. What would the practical implication be if we didn't pass this item? What would we lose in services?
We'd lose the 3 pilots would have to go back. We'd lose the 3 that we have out there now. We'd lose about $500,000 in reimbursements from 08, 09 for equipment we've already bought, already purchased. And we wouldn't have that. The remaining $1.3 million that we're going to get per year would go to the county fire department.
And what would we actually lose in terms of the impact on residents of the city of Los Angeles?
Well, that'd be the 3 pilots, the 50,000.
What do they do is the question.
The
You know,
3
what isn't going to be done for city residents if we didn't provide this funding?
Well, we'd eventually run out of pilots, and then we wouldn't be able to do our both water dropping missions and fires, and we wouldn't be able to do our aeromedical mission. We're trying to catch up when we were without the aircraft for several years, the training aircraft.
Great, thank you.
Kind of like, it's not like the council member, you come in and you're sworn in, you take the seat and you run with it. They got to be trained for this.
Yeah, just a little bit, it sounds like.
And then you mentioned underserved areas. What areas would we consider in the city underserved?
Well, when the Measure B was written, it talked about underserved trauma areas, and the only area in the city that's underserved is the pediatric trauma patients in the San Fernando Valley. So that's how we qualify for this.
Because they have to take those youngsters over to Children's.
Correct, and we have to fly them.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. No, it's definitely a great project. And Measure B, there's no term on that. That runs.
Correct, it runs forever.
I remember when the Supervisor Yaroslavsky was pushing that. Okay, this sounds good. So we'll keep the people happy. These folks are already working Air Ops, or they're going to be
The 3
bringing new?
pilots are, sir, and then we've been doing the contracting service for the $50,000, and the AC would be whenever we get for final approval on that.
Okay. Well, I know that fire is essential. A lot of your calls are for paramedic service, so It's not going to cost the general fund, and it'll help the people of Los Angeles keep them safe. Mr. Koretz, motion?
Oh, I certainly move this item. These are critical services.
All right. Approved. Thank you. Thanks, Dan. Thank you. Okay, our next item, please.
On item 2, the Personnel Department has submitted a report relative to the status of the city's pilot workers' compensation alternative dispute resolution services program.
Number 2, David and Dawn. It's David and Dawn. D&D. And we have a speaker. Did you want to speak? I see your colleague, 3 of you. This must be an important issue. All right. Go ahead, please.
We're here on the report of the status of the ADR pilot program with SEIU.
Louis, last time I saw you, you was at a retirement party
Yes,
for Pete.
for Pete, yeah. It's my brother-in-law.
Yeah, good guy.
Yeah.
Okay, you look different today. You look,
There
I
was a
think,
bar
I think you were enjoying, I didn't want to say that.
there.
You were enjoying the retirement party.
Party too?
It was very nice, okay.
We're here on the status report for the pilot program. The pilot program was started in April, let's see, June 30, wait, when, July 1st, 2008. And it continues to this day. It's doing what it should be doing. What the ADR program is eliminates the litigation part of the claim, and it involves an ombudsman, a mediator, arbitrator, without the necessity to go to the WCAB. So the claims are being resolved quicker, cleaner, and with happier injured workers. The communication between the adjusters and the injured workers increase, and that is helped along with the ombudsman. The current contractor for the services is H Remedy, and the work comp division is, has a good relationship with them, and things seems to be going well. During the initial pilot so far, we've saved about $212,000, but it's really too soon in the pilot to really determine the savings. I always go back to in my prior employment, we actually, the company I worked for developed the ADR program in the state of California with the pipe fitters and electricians. And we started that program in 1995, and it really wasn't until 98, end of 98, that our studies were showing substantial savings, because the average life of a litigated claim is 3 to 5 years. So I still think we have about a year to go before we're really going to truly see substantial savings, but the savings are there. And we'd like to continue the pilot. We have an RFP going out in 2 to 3 weeks because our current contract is over, right?
Yeah, April 30th.
April 30th. And we need to request for a 6-month extension, month by month.
Okay.
And if, there's been we've been questioned about extending the ADR throughout the whole city. Currently, our contract is $335,000 for the part that we do have with SEIU. And in our report, I think we include everything, but not UFLAC or EAA. It's going to be about $1.5 million.
How about PPO?
Does that include PPO? That includes PPO. Yeah, because
What I see here is PPO. I don't see the extension, the SEIU.
we're estimating if it was rolled out if EAA
Coalition, okay. Oh,
EAA came, it would be 117,000. LA City Coalition, excluding SEIU, would be 184,000. The PPL police would be 663,000. SCIU, the other parts that are not in the program right now, 64,000, and then the current contract, which is 335,000.
Now, why are EAA and UFLAC not included? Are they not
They-
supportive of the idea yet? Or
They, I wasn't here when that part happened. What?
UFLAC has signed, I believe, a letter of interest in looking at an ADR program, but at the time we drafted this report, we didn't have that in our possession. So overall, to continue on with
how
the
about
program,
EAA? Are they for some reason not supportive of this?
we have not had any interest from EAA.
They're still without contracts, aren't they?
Correct.
Yeah, so
And-
maybe it's just the least of their problems, but I think this is intuitively such a good concept that one would eventually hope that everybody is involved with it, and I would certainly encourage us to fund every piece of it that we can. I mean, having been a claims adjuster myself for a little while, I mean, there's no question that getting out ahead of the game and getting people back to work and getting them treated medically and doing all of the things that this program would do can only be a positive.
It's very positive, and the attitudes of the parties changed. I mean, the injured workers actually calling the analysts, and they're having discussions, and it's a friendly interaction versus adversarial, because sometimes when an attorney gets in the mix, the injured worker's told not to trust us. You know, and we try to do the best job we can, as well as TriStar does. The ADR is only in the civilian side currently. So if it was expanded, we would have to train as TriStar and such, the TPA.
Well, you're requesting authorization up to 1.5 million in savings from the Human Resources Benefit Workers' Compensation account to fund a contract extension and new contract. And that would cover coalition and PPO
Correct.
under the new proposal.
And it's money coming out of the savings that we generated.
Okay, let's hear from Julie Butcher. Julie.
The SEIU is extremely supportive of this. This was, comes out of the trades initially, and in the experience in the building trades, in these kinds of, this was initially called a workers' comp carve-out, really to allow for a different process outside of the normal workers' comp system. Really seeks to minimize unnecessary intervention of attorneys, of what used to be the scuzzy back and forth medical mills and referrals, not to offend the attorneys in the room or anybody else. And the building trades actually have experience of savings between 20 and 30% on their workers' comp costs. This is very new in the city. Los Angeles was actually the first city. Together we sought to change the state legislation to make it permissive to allow for local government to opt out of the normal workers' comp process. It's the right kind of savings. It's the kind of savings that we get from getting people back to work as quickly as we can, getting them treated as soon as we can, and getting them performing essential work. So we support this. The coalition is interested in expanding this coalition-wide, and we'd encourage every union in the city to be part of this process. Again, this is very simply having somebody that intercedes very early after a worker's injured, helps people understand how the process is going to work, allows the translation of doctor into English, all of that's necessary, again, to make sure that folks are treated as quickly as they can, get back to work as healthy, as quickly and as healthy as they can. So it really is very, very consistent with the goals of workers' comp in general and of getting people back to work. Once somebody's hurt, the employer is paying for that injury forever. And so any intervention, any avoidable cost, what we would also like to see is the other part of what needs to be implemented, which is the opportunity to improve on our safety operations. If we can, and the idea is to keep somebody from getting hurt. Once they're hurt, they're hurt. We can get them back as quickly as possible, and there's important savings, but up front. So this also assumes a safety committee that's truly a labor management process. We understand this is new, but we expect full implementation of this in any other agreement.
Okay.
And certainly, I'd say from my modest experience, when people have attorneys intervene, it's usually because they weren't fully treated, they didn't feel like they were being helped, and injured workers generally just want to get back to work and get healthy. And so this is a great concept. Now, when you talk more about the prevention side, my sense is that the city, in some areas, has probably backtracked on things like, I'm blanking out on the right word, but ergonomics.
Anybody that does anything related to safety. The city still spends a couple $100 million on workers' comp and a couple $100,000 on safety programs. It's still a problem.
But something as simple as making sure everybody has the right chairs and the right headsets and all of that. The preventive side is a fraction of the $50,000 to $100,000 claim that you get because you have a permanent case of carpal tunnel and 3 or 4 surgeries that don't work. So if we can, in our joint labor management discussions, try to identify more of those situations, in the long run, I think it'll save the city a lot of money.
It's not exactly the same as a revenue-generating job. I think it's actually more important. The avoidance of cost is as good as raising money, as if we keep costs from incurring, especially, you're absolutely right, bad costs that we can avoid by simple action.
But I guess it's not technically revenue-generating, but I think of that as the same thing. If you have a job that can save more money than your position, ideally you create more of those jobs rather than cutting them.
It sounds like a successful program. I know there's members from the PPO that are here. They don't wish to speak. They don't have any objection, I would assume?
Don't know enough about it, Dennis. We're just
Okay.
here to find out what the report is, what the recommendations are.
Scott? Why don't you
Sure.
come forward?
Sure.
That way you get you on the, identify your barber, please, and
Same one you go to, sir.
obviously.
Yeah. Scott Raitt, Director with the Los Angeles Police Protective League, was also the lead negotiator for our MOU that we just had approved to the council. We did bring this concept to the attention of the CAOs at the time of negotiating as a cost-saving measure. We haven't looked into it further yet. Our understanding is that all of these involve separate carve-outs and separate MOU negotiations with each individual association. So I'm not sure what the folks were talking about here is lumping us in with a full group, where our understanding is that we're willing to look and go down that road, but it's going to be separately.
Well, it says, in addition, the PPO in their 09-11 MOU contains a letter of intent agreeing to explore the use of ADR in the area of workers' compensation. Members of the coalition, LA City unions have also expressed interest in participating. So their interest in participating, details still have to be worked out regarding that, but it sounds like they have interest. So what we could do is recommend, is what's called for in the personnel report, is that we move forward with authorizing the Personnel Department General Manager or designee to release a request for a proposal and award a contract for continuation of the current ADR service program, ombudsman, mediator, arbitrator, nurse advocates for SCU 721, potential expansion to other unions that wish to participate, potential expansion which would include the PPO. Authorize Personnel Department General Manager designee to extend the current contract with that's weird, H Remedy? It's all together though. H Remedy Business Solutions Incorporated for month-to-month basis until the new contract for ADR services is executed, subject to city attorney review and form and legality. Authorize the Personnel Department to utilize up to $1.5 million in savings from the fiscal year 09-10 Human Resources Benefits Workers' Compensation Account 9910 to fund the contract extension and new contract, and authorize the controller to transfer $1.5 million to the fund for this particular process.
Well, I
So-
would move that if that's,
Those are the 4 recommendations, and without objection, concurrence, we will then move that, and hopefully the PPL and everybody else can get on board with it.
On recommendation 2, could we amend it so that we execute the contract with H Remedy for an initial 6 months and then additional month-to-month up to 1 year?
Well, how long is it going to take for the RFP?
Unfortunately, we project that it could take up to 1 year.
All right, so you want to amend this instead of a month-to-month,
an initial.
And you're happy
6
with,
months.
you're happy with H Remedy?
Yes.
Are they a representative here?
Yeah, we have representatives here.
Okay, so they're doing a good job.
Yes.
Okay, so you want to extend that from month to month to a 6-month?
Correct, with an option to extend on a month-to-month for an additional 6 months.
Okay.
Not to exceed 1 year.
And if they do good, maybe they'll get the contract. If not, how many businesses, how many
During the
competitors?
last RFP, I believe we had a total of 4 responders.
There's not that many that are involved in this process?
They're more inclined to bid for the trades, pipe fitters, electricians, because this is a new thing. But we'll have a much broader list to send the RFP or notify those individuals. Because 2 years ago, there was about 18 companies out there from my past experience, so.
And now they've reduced the numbers?
No, they're probably still there, but when the city bid, they didn't have that knowledge. I wasn't there.
Okay.
But there's quite a few companies out there that are run by retired workers' compensation judges and other attorney-like people.
So the city wins, the employee wins, the taxpayer wins.
So one of the biggest complaints, your office here is, it takes so long to get that medical appointment. Why is it taking a year to get my AME QME? Well, it's not gonna take that long because the ombudsman submits the 3 names to the injured worker, he picks them. The appointment is made within 2 weeks. So instead of waiting 6 months to get that AME QME, you got the appointment, you're in and you're out in less than 3 weeks. And that alone is IOD savings. The IOD is down, but you can't really put that in dollar figures because it's not paid out of our 9910 account. But
Right.
that's one of the positives from the pilot is IOD hours are down.
Okay.
But things are smoother, quicker, and better.
It's too bad it's taking so long to come on board.
Correct.
It's a big win for the employees, too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody wins. Okay, so that'll be the recommendation for approval on item number 2. And thank you for the PPO participation. Hopefully you can work arrangements out with them. Number 3, please.
On item 3, you have a report from the Personnel Department, and this is regarding consolidated reasonable accommodations for employees with temporary and permanent work restrictions as a result of industrial or non-industrial injuries or illnesses. This is for the second quarter of fiscal year 2009-2010.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Raylan Napper, Personnel Department. Again, this report covers the second quarter of the current fiscal year and generally compares the data to the same quarter of the prior fiscal year. The Workers' Compensation Division reports the employees with industrial injury or illness. They track light-duty hours worked, IOD saved, IOD spent. And attachment 1 is page 1 are the city and department totals. And you have both first quarter and second quarter there. For light-duty hours, there's been an increase since the second quarter of last fiscal year of about 17%. For IOD saved, the increase in about 22.25% from last year. And in IOD spent, there's been a decrease of about 7%. So these are all trending in the most beneficial direction to the city.
Okay.
Attachment 2. This part is reported by the EEO section and covers reasonable accommodation requests within departments.
Can we get you're having conversations there that are really starting to disrupt. I thought they'd end, but they didn't, so.
Thank you.
All right, go ahead.
So we're on attachment 2, which are requests made internal to departments for reasonable accommodation. These are employees with permanent work restrictions. And you can see the number of requests made, granted, denied, and pending as of this quarter. Everything's remained about steady. Some people have gone down a little, some people have gone up just a tad from the last quarter. And then attachment 3 covers citywide placement. So when a department isn't able to accommodate their employees, they refer them to citywide placement, and the EEO section of the Personnel Department looks for other positions in other departments for them. So here you can see the number of new searches in the quarter, the number resolved, and the number still pending.
Yeah, this goes through Personnel Department?
Yes.
Were we gonna talk about a motion, something regarding this? Regarding light duty personnel,
This isn't light duty. These are people with permanent work.
permanent,
Yes.
permanent light duty, permanent restriction,
Permanent restrictions, yes.
okay. Whatever capacity.
Right.
There was a motion I believe we were looking into.
You did one previously.
Huh?
A couple of years ago, you did one previously.
This was something current. Do all the departments know this exists?
Yes.
Because I see a few requests when you look at,
We encourage departments to they need to do an exhaustive search within their department before they refer them to citywide placement.
because 75 does not seem to be a lot.
Sure.
On attachment 2,
Oh, this is not citywide. This is
department.
within departments, so you can see.
Oh, within the department.
Yeah. This is prior to citywide placement. And then the last page is citywide placement.
Okay, there we go. That's attachment 3.
Yes.
There's not a lot there either. There's only 8.
8 new requests, 24 within placement.
That's not a lot for a number of people we have.
Uh,
So what do we do with the people?
Well, we place them.
So, I mean, everybody else is working except 24 people?
Right. And then there are a number of people within the department still that may be off work on paid or unpaid leave or IOD, that they're still trying to work out their accommodation within the department.
Okay. It just seems we could put more emphasis on those permanents. Now, temporary would fall into this too, or just permanent?
Just permanent. Temporary remains in the workers' compensation arena
So they stay within their particular,
for light duty.
yeah.
I know we had some conversation in the context of the police budget in terms of trying to get the large number of people on light duty, either back in the field or to get them off the payroll so they could hire people that could actually go out in the field. I don't know if that fits in at all with what we're discussing here or not.
It might be a little beyond. These numbers may support that discussion. But I know our third-party administrator is generally pretty aggressive, and the same trends here, I believe, apply to the police department, which, of course, is the biggest amount of the workers' comp number and money.
Now, they still paid their same salary if they're switched to light duty?
For light duty, yes.
Permanent light duty.
There's no permanent light duty.
I'm sorry, light duty.
Whenever
Restricted.
when they can't return to work in any capacity and they're out on IOD, after a certain period, then it's reduced to the state rate or
Yeah, but when they get a permanent position.
accommodation.
What do they call that?
A permanent accommodation.
That's what it's called?
Yes.
Seems like we have a fancier word for it.
Then it depends on what that accommodation is. If they're still performing the essential functions of a police officer, they're going to receive police officer pay. However, if they can't do that and they've been accommodated as a clerk typist, they've been 1014 transferred to that class, then they'll receive the salary of a clerk typist.
So folks doing that in the LAPD that are doing civilian functions because they can't be out in the field, are we assuming they are actually paid as civilians or as full sworn officers?
I'm not sure I can speak to that.
You know, that was the issue, that we have 600-plus positions within the police department.
Right.
Civilian positions that aren't filled, and many of those positions, sworn personnel who are certified for field are being pulled out of the field. We were looking at using something like this, put folks in those categories, in those inside non-hazardous positions, where you'd put those officers back in the field. The permanent people,
Right. I know they've actually taken on a number of people, especially from citywide placement, because we're certainly aware of those, but so they have accommodated a number of
because Chief
people
Beck
that
is
were able-
taking more people out of administrative positions, putting them in the field.
I hope so.
Well, he is, because the officers with the overtime, they can only get 400 hours overtime. At 250, they're forced off,
Right.
which is reducing the field force. So he's pushing more officers out there. And the civilian positions, somehow, something could be worked up on administrative positions, clerical positions, administrative positions, timekeepers, whatever the case may be, which are non-hazardous. I mean, they have to go through a background and make sure they're not criminals, but since they're city employees, somehow, that was what I was thinking of, that we were trying to move folks into those categories, because there's going to be more and more officers being released to the field, than more of those administrative positions that aren't filled. And this might be a pool. How many do we have total?
Well, in citywide placement, there are 24 people.
No, I
but-
mean
total where?
All departments, some are in-house, within the department,
Who need accommodation?
yes.
Oh, 147.
140.
Well, about 170.
Citywide, that's it?
Yes.
I thought it'd be higher than that. These are people who can't perform that main function, but they're gonna be not light duty, they're gonna be permanent restricted to
They have some
another.
permanent restrictions that may or may not allow them to perform the essential functions of the job.
And that's 170 people.
Yes.
Okay, I thought it was much higher than that.
No.
Now, is that only people that have popped up in this second quarter?
This is kind of these numbers capture the continual amount, so that's the total amount.
There's 170 that haven't been taken care of yet.
Right,
they're
that are
looking
pending.
for it.
Okay, 100 have, but how many do we have total that are currently in positions?
That would be much smaller. I mean, you have, where's this one?
So we don't have thousands.
No, it's not thousands. It's not thousands. There were 75 new requests in that quarter within all departments. And of those, and the ones that came before, 147 are pending.
Because the police department has hundreds, if I'm not mistaken, permanent light duty, permanent restricted, and temporary light duty. Permanent and temporary.
Police department worked with the league a few years back to deal with some of those issues. And they've identified what the essential functions of the position are. For a number of years, the police department had not done that. Consequently, officers were kept in positions as officers, but on light duty status indefinitely.
And receiving the
that's-
pay and hazard,
receiving
whatever.
pay, correct. But that situation was corrected,
With
a few years ago.
with a special order.
Right.
But there's still a grandfather, those that were
Those
already in.
A few.
grandfather, that's correct.
But there's hundreds of
Well.
those,
Yes, there are.
many hundreds. Like our Sergeant at Arms, who's fully certified and fully equipped to jump to his feet and protect us in the time of necessity. So he couldn't be a position, but Harry, who sits down in council, could be. So we're talking about how we can fill some of the gap within, and maybe other departments may have the same, but I know the police department, the numbers were extremely high. And to have these positions filled by competent people who can do that task, but can't work in their other assignment. How do we make that happen? June Gibson jumps to her feet.
My understanding is that Chief MacArthur has been very diligent about reviewing this matter. I know that issue was discussed in the Police Efficiency Working Group meeting. So if the chair would wish, we could request that Chief MacArthur come and make a presentation on what the department has done recently on that issue.
Because I could see it getting, with the necessity to put more officers in the field, a need to have those other positions, administrative, clerical, that are being performed by officers, a big gap to get those functions taken care of. So that'd be good. Let's do that. Brilliant, June Gibson.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Koretz, what do you think?
Nothing further?
All right, so this is going to be a receive and file?
Yes.
Okay, that's what we will do. That's the direction. Thank you.
Are you ready for item 4?
Number 4.
On item 4, the CAO, City Administrative Officer, has submitted a report. This is regarding an amendment to number 2 for the Memorandum of Understanding number 17, Supervisory Professional Engineering and Scientific Unit, and this is to comply with the Environmental Affairs Department relocation of resources.
Okay, Earl.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
This particular report is for the purpose of Y rating the compensation of an individual who will be taking on a position in the Department of Transportation that is special funded. There's no impact on the general fund, and it requires an amendment to the MOU and will go in as a salary note for this individual. Should that position then become vacant, it would not apply then to any successor in the position.
So the annual salary for a recently eliminated position was $152,299. Her new salary is going to be $122,000. So she's going from $152,000 to $122,000?
Except that by Y rating it, she would
She's
maintain.
going to stay at $152,000.
That is correct.
Yet her position was eliminated
Her
as part of the
prior
effort.
position was eliminated, that's correct.
One thing that troubles me, how many years of service does she have?
I'm sorry, I don't know.
See, the question is, the position pays 122. We're going to say she gets 152, which is 30,000 more for an unlimited duration when we have a tight money crunch. That's a problem. I mean, the mayor said you're only going to be working 3 days a week.
That's right, so it will be less than 152.
Of course, the special funded position, so it doesn't really impact the money crunch.
Correct.
Well, we talk about special funded, but how long is it going to be special funded?
If the funding goes away, the position goes away.
And how secure is that funding?
According to the department, that has been there, and I don't know what their long-term is in terms of how long it will remain there.
So
If in fact there were no funding for the position, then that person would have to seek another position.
So, Environmental Affairs Officer, DOT. So while we eliminated the Environmental Affairs Department, we created a position.
The position was already there.
The Environmental Affairs Officer was already there at DOT.
That is correct. It was vacant.
Oh, it's vacant. So she's taking a vacant position.
That is correct.
That paid 122, but she's going to get 152. How many other folks are in that category
We
at
don't.
DOT?
You mean how many other environmental affairs officers?
At 122?
I cannot answer you definitively on that. It is my belief that this is the only person for this particular task in this classification for the department.
Because if you were there at DOT in that position at 122 and someone comes in at 152, you'd probably get a little upset.
I would concur with that, but I don't believe
But since
that's
you're going to
the
be working 3
situation.
days a week, you'd be happy to have a job.
Then it would be.
That's true.
You too, Tom Coltis. But Z woman, she'll have a job every day because she's with the city attorney.
She's not on special funds.
Well, Grace has a great pension, so she doesn't care. You know, her whole family's employed by the city,
But almost, huh?
which is good.
Which is a large impact on a whole family.
It is. I mean, half the city budget goes to.
I think the other half goes to Chief Beck's family.
You know, you got some humor today. Where'd you find that?
I don't know.
You're normally not
Probably
that
got
funny.
it from you.
You're normally not that funny, but today it's a banner day for you. So I just want to make sure that we're being fair to all the employees, and including this person who her job was cut.
I can get that information and get back to you if in fact that is the potential.
And when will this go to council?
Since we have been asked by the council president to only schedule items on Friday, more than likely next Friday, unless you want me to hold it.
Yeah, why don't you hold it? Why don't we find out the answer to those questions?
Okay.
And then
Okay.
make sure, because I don't want to disrupt the folks who are already in those positions. And I understand the Y rating because you're set to a lifestyle. But see, you're only going to be working 3 days a week, so your salary's going to get anyway.
It'll be a new lifestyle one way or the other.
It will be, for all of us. Yeah, let's find that out. And I think we're going to probably see more Y-rated positions coming through as they start to eliminate positions.
Well, I think this is a little extraordinary in terms of an entire department going out.
Yeah, but there's other departments that are slated to be scratched.
Yes, however, some of the leadership of that department is just no longer with the city.
Exactly, exactly. So how much time she has, when, if she plans to retire, you know, the years, 'cause she's gonna be here for another 15 or 20 years.
This person could have potentially much more time, yes.
Yeah, which will be an issue if I'm working DOT in that category, and this person's $30,000 ahead of me. I'm not gonna be a happy employee. But then again, I'll be happy I'm working 3 days a week.
Do you want that information to come back to the full committee, or just to have the clearance on the information?
Just the clearance is fine. The clearance is- I don't wanna hold her up on a position, but I just wanna make sure that we're being fair with everybody.
Okay.
And since the funding, so you say if the funding runs out, then she's gotta go find something else.
That's correct.
Yeah, okay. Is that okay with you, Paul?
Sounds fine.
All right, that'll be the direction on number 4.
There are no public comments. Do you wish to adjourn?
I have, Ms. June Gibson has some comments to make.
Wonderful meeting, sir.
Thank you very much. Those were her closing comments. We are.